I'm gonna take a wild guess and estimate that it happened around the age of 25. Would I be right? Where you start to put your head on a swivel, you look around, and suddenly you notice that everybody's got their lifelong best friend, or they're suddenly in this pack of people who are like their established friend group, and you start to wonder, where did my people go? Like, what happened? I know I had friends, but what happened? And for most of us, it does start to happen around the age of 25. In fact, research tells us that that's the age at which your network, your social network, begins to shrink. But today I want to share with you 4 reasons why becoming an adult and suddenly having to make friends is so anxiety inducing. And it's not just in your head, you are not alone. So let's jump right in. Hey, I'm Danielle Jackson, a certified friendship coach. Yes, it is a thing. And when it comes to the misconceptions and complexities surrounding female friendship, I am here to help you through it. The first reason it's so difficult to make friends as an adult is because our priorities completely change, and not just yours, everybody around you. And so if suddenly I'm giving increased focus to advancing my career and establishing my own family ties, well, that leaves a little less room for you, my friend, doesn't it? I found that even when I coach women who are having this issue, once they get equipped with everything they need to do, all the tools, all the scripts and things to say, they still have to go out into a world where not everybody else is suddenly being intentional about making friends because they're focused on other things. And because we suddenly have other goals in our line of sight, then we have a reduced amount of time that we dedicate to our friends. Friendship itself almost becomes a luxury of sorts. Like it's a nice to have, but it's not a need to have. And so if we're packing our schedules with everything else, time with our boo that we're trying to invest in because we want to get married soon, or we're hyper focused on our career because we want to climb the corporate ladder, if those things are taking up our brain space and our time, then it makes it harder to dedicate time to friendship. And we start to treat it as something we'll get to once we have leftover time, pushing it into the margins of our lives. But if everybody's putting it on the back burner, when do we dedicate time to come together? So if finding time to be intentional about friends feels impossible to you, I have 2 tips for you. The first is this: the same way that you put other things on your calendar to prioritize, you have to reserve that same kind of dedication and intention for friend making. Whether that's you joining different social groups or tagging along with your super extroverted friend who doesn't mind bringing a +1, the same way we prioritize work and family, we have to do that and have that same approach about making new friends. The second reason that it's kind of challenging to make friends as an adult is because we start to form these fixed mindsets. And so here's what I mean by that. A lot of times I'll hear people who say, you know what, at this point, I think I'm just too insert personality trait here. And so, yeah, we should expect that on some level we have an increased self-awareness. We learn ourselves, we know our strengths and weaknesses, but a lot of us are subscribing to ideas of ourselves that are not permanent. And so we'll say, you know what, I'm just chronically shy. Or you know what, I just get too awkward. I think it's just hard for me. And once at 25, 30, 35, 40, we're adapting these ideas about ourselves, we just set ourselves up so that for the next 20, 30, 40 years, we have less potential to make the connections that we're actually hungry for because we've told ourselves it's just not possible for me. Another common mindset that I often hear that's a lie that we believe is that it's too late for me, that everyone else already has their group and I should have somehow established my group a long time ago. There's no time, I'm probably too late. And I can't stress this enough, that is just not true. You have people out here at 30, 60 years old who are finding new friends every day, which means it's equally possible for you. And so if you find that you are subscribing to the idea that perhaps it's too late for you at insert age here, I challenge you to think of this. I want you to consider the ways in which that mindset is operating against you and you don't even realize. And so let's say I do make a new connection and I meet a woman who seems really cool. Does this mindset affect the way that I engage with her? And so secretly, I'm not even really investing or dedicating my time to following up with her or keeping momentum because in the back of my mind, I don't believe that it's even gonna really turn into anything. And so sometimes clinging to those mindsets, we're sabotaging ourselves. And so every connection that does come our way, every opportunity, every potential friend is not going to manifest into something that we're looking for because secretly we're walking around believing that we're out of time. The third reason that it's seemingly challenging to make friends as an adult is because a lot of our pre-constructed social backdrops have been removed. That's a fancy way of saying things like recess. or college dormitories have all been removed. So think back with me, think back. In elementary, you've got a dedicated time to spend time together, to go outside. The teachers carved out time literally just for you to socialize. And so at some point when you're younger, your job is to make friends. Your parents even say to you, go make friends. And that's the focus that you're supposed to have. You get to college, many of us, and we're in a dorm. We're in classes in these shared spaces where we are in an environment saturated with our peers. It's easy to look at someone who's right next to you, a neighboring potential friend or classmate who is going through the same life stages as you at the same time, and to somehow find camaraderie in that space. Suddenly, you exit these spaces and there are no college events, and suddenly you find yourself tasked with the responsibility of figuring it out on your own. And so, yes, I think that would make anybody quiver a little bit, especially if you've never had to exercise the muscle, right? So it leaves a lot of us confused as to where do I start? How do I find people? And then once I do find people, how do I coordinate things in such a way where I invite them to do something? And then how do I know that they're interested enough to advance and meet up again? It leaves us with a lot of questions. And so if you find that you're in that space where you're like, I don't even know how to get this started, I don't even know like how to move forward, what questions to ask. So if you find yourself wondering things like, how do I find my people, and how do I find events, and where am I supposed to cultivate these new friendships, you're not alone. It's something we're all trying to discover together. And let me say, I don't say this to be discouraging, and I know I keep saying that like it's something that we're all kind of going through together once we reach a certain space in adulthood, but it is possible. There are scripts that you can learn. There are strategies that you can adopt that no one's ever taught you. And that actually leads me to reason number 4. A final reason why it's so tricky making friends in adulthood is because there's a lack of resources and a lack of cultural support. So tell me if you've noticed this. I've seen that the extent of the public dialogue around making friends seems to be, you either have friends or you don't. And if you don't, what's wrong with you? And I don't know about you, but that doesn't really leave enough space to explore the nuances behind making friends as a grown adult person. Remember, I said earlier that as a kid, it's like there's so many things to support you, to help you out. There's groups that are arranged, there's social hours that are designed for you. Your parents are arranging play dates on your behalf. It's seemingly so easy when we look back at that time. And I'll never forget that when I actually became a friendship coach about 3 years ago, one of the first things I did was I went on Amazon and I searched for friendship books. And at the time, there were very few results. And of the results that came up, most of them were for children. And I thought to myself, is this what we think of friendship? That it's something that kids would need help with, but an adult would have figured out. And so why is it that if I have a business and I get a business coach, that's a very wise move of me. Of course, naturally I'd get a coach. If I'm married and I'm struggling in my relationship, we would go and see a counselor. Well, that's a great move, Danielle. That's a wise thing to do to get the support you need. But when it comes to making friends or to creating friendships of depth, there's very little support and there aren't as many resources to help us through it, even though it's as natural as can be. So if you find that you're in a space where you're in a new life season, let's say you've looked around and you've thought, man, making friends has become a real challenge, it is not just in your head. There are very legitimate reasons for why you would suddenly find yourself in that position. I want you to think of your answer to this question. Why is it so hard to make friends? I'll wait, I'll give you it. Okay, what's your response? I want you to now think about that response and the extent to which it was finite or fixed. So for example, if you said something like, oh, well, no one's interested in making new friends in my city. Really? No one? Or, oh, there's no time to make new friends. Really? No time? I know I'm getting annoying, so I'll stop. But the idea here is that I want you to start exploring the mindsets, the excuses, the justifications you've made for why it's always going to be difficult for you and your relative situation. And then I want you to kind of, if you're open to it, start to chip away at that. Because as life coachy as it sounds to say, start with mindset first, it really does begin there. And so if you're believing that it's too late, or that your city is just impossible in your city, or that you have certain personal inadequacies that make it impossible, I want you to challenge that first and start to begin to explore all the possibilities and go from there. If this is something you find you're still struggling with, I got you. Over at betterfemalefriendships.com, there are 3 ways that I can support you. The first is through a personal one-on-one coaching session. The second is through our brand new How to Make Friends as an Adult course. And finally, our Friendship Elevated program, an 8-week group coaching program that's a combination of weekly video modules and personal coaching sessions with me. Until then, you know that I am here rooting for you always on your ongoing journey toward better female friendships. Until next time.